Hello YouTube friends, Ben Ochart, thank you for tuning in. The tank that's below this 100, the one down here, the 30-gallon quarantine tank, that tank can save you hundreds of dollars. I'm going to show you how. I'm going to give you my best tips and the reasons why that tank can save you hundreds of dollars and a lot of aggravation. And at the end of the video, I'm going to give you a bonus tip on how to set one of these things up super fast. Let's get into it. If this is your first time to the channel and you'd like to always be learning about how to take better care of our fish, why don't you click on that bell and that sub button, and that way you'll always get notified when I upload content and when I go live on Saturdays when I do the Cichlids and Coffee live stream. So why don't you go ahead and do that now, just get it out of the way, and let's get into today's topic. The first and most obvious reason why you want a tank like this set up and ready to go is because it can save all of the fish in your main tank, because when you receive fish, either fish that were shipped to you or fish that you picked up at a local fish store, you can put them in this tank for several weeks, usually in my case for a month, and keep a good eye on them and make sure that they're healthy, that they're eating, that they're acting right before you transfer them to your main tank. If you don't, and if they develop a disease while in your main tank and end up infecting all of your fish, now you have a real major problem. So that can cost you hundreds of dollars in lost fish and the emotional loss and aggravation that comes with that. Another way that a quarantine tank can save you a ton of both money and aggravation is that if you do have a fish that becomes sick and starts to show the signs of illness, clamped fins, not eating, hanging out in the back, and perhaps spots or some growth on the body, and you need to treat that fish. If you don't have a tank to put it in, you're going to have to treat the entire tank. You look at the cost of setting up a quarantine tank, and I'm going to put a link under this video where you're going to be able to see some of the products that you'll need to set up a quarantine tank rapidly. But the cost of setting up a quarantine tank will be offset the first time that you need to actually treat with meds a large tank. You take something like API, let's say General Cure, or Metroplex together with Focus, something like that, you treat a 100-gallon tank because you notice the fish has some type of ailment. Perhaps you're suspecting parasites or velvet or some kind of growth on the body. To treat this 100-gallon tank, let's say over a 2-week period, you're going to spend $50 in meds. You're going to spend $50 more than you would if you had treated the fish in a 30-gallon. If you removed them immediately upon seeing some kind of a sign, put them into a quarantine tank, and then treated the quarantine tank instead. So right there, you're going to save and pay for the cost of your quarantine tank. Another way that a quarantine tank is very, very valuable is it gives you the opportunity to remove a fish that's being bullied. That's, let's say its fins are torn up, it has spots on the side where it's been hit by another fish. It gives you a chance actually to quarantine, to move that fish out and give it a chance to actually recover. It also gives you a place that you can put the bully. Let's say that fish is bullying a lot of different fish. You remove one victim, it's just going to move on to another fish to beat up. Instead, you can take the bully out and put him into a tank like this and leave him there for a little while and see if after you put him back, if he's any different. If after that time out he's still the same, then it's time to rehome him or find him a different place. But at least you have a place that you can put a fish to do something like that. I'm doing a version of that right now in this 100-gallon with this Fusco. This Fusco is actually on a bit of a break or vacation from the 150 because he was getting harassed a little bit too much by the Malawi trout. He's got marks on his sides, he's got a few fins that have some wear and tear on them, and so he needed to chill. And so I'm using this 100-gallon, in this case I'm using the 100-gallon as a type of quarantine tank in the case of the Fusco. He's not sick. I'm not worried about him actually getting these other fish ill in some way. I was a little concerned about him eating some of those fish, but He's not. He's just hanging out and being cool. All right, so that's point number 3. Another good use for a quarantine tank is to put a fish that's holding. Let's say you have a female. It's very obvious that she's been holding for a couple of weeks. She's getting close. You don't have a way of, let's say you don't want to vent or pull the eggs and put them in a tumbler, something like that. You can take that female out very carefully so she doesn't spit the eggs out and put her into a quarantine tank. Let her go ahead and have her fry in there and spend some time with them and let her recover. Keep in mind that these females that actually go the entire time, I guess full term, haven't eaten probably in 2 to 3 weeks, right? And so they're probably pretty weak, and so they need a chance to catch their breath. So the female can actually regain her strength, start eating a little bit, be with the fry a bit, and then remove the female and put her back in the main tank. So this extra tank gives you a place where you can do that, assuming it's not being used for something else. And that's where you get things like breeder boxes, right? I've also used tanks like this as a grow out. In other words, you have a fish and you pick him up, or he arrives, let's say, in the mail, and you thought he'd be a little bit bigger, but when you bring him in and you compare him to some of the fish in your tank, he's actually a lot smaller. And so you don't want to put him in just yet because you think he might get harassed, beaten up, or maybe even eaten. And so what you can do is if you have an extra tank like this, you can go ahead and put that fish in the tank, let him put on some size, let him put on some weight, and then transfer him to the bigger tank when he's ready. Usually 3 or 4 months. I find it can take for a fish to put on a noticeable amount of size that makes it safe to move him into a bigger tank. And I believe that might be number 5. So there you go. 5 reasons why a tank like this is vital. And I'm going to give you a bonus tip. So here's your bonus tip. You can pick up a complete kit, and I'm talking like a full aquarium kit, and just have it ready. You can even do this in a bucket if you had to. But let's say you need an emergency hospital tank or a quarantine tank. Here's what I suggest. Keep a sponge, whether it be the sponge insert that goes into a small hang-on back, that goes, that sometimes come with those smaller tanks, or maybe just a sponge filter, like with the kind with a bubbler. Keep one of those in your main aquarium behind some decor. You can have it running or not running, but have that sponge getting bacteria rich, okay? So then what happens is when you want to set up that tank very, very quickly, you can take that small tank, whether it's a 5 or a 10 gallon. What you do is you fill that tank half with aquarium water and half with treated tap water. That is temperature matched, ideally. You can also buy small heaters that can go into these small 5 and 10 gallon tanks. Let's say it's the winter and you have some cold months, your house gets a little cold, you can buy small heaters too. I'm gonna have links to all of these products underneath the video. You can pick them up at my Amazon store. But put half tank water, half treated temperature matched tap water. It's like a 50% water change. Then take that sponge that you've been seasoning, right? That you've been sauteing in the tank, letting it grow beneficial bacteria, and put that filter insert into the filter, or put that bubbler, that sponge filter, just drop it in, and hook up that air pump, and you have a tank that is instantly cycled and ready to go. If you want to put a little bit more beneficial bacteria in it because you want to be a little bit more certain, grab a handful, a cup maybe, of substrate from the established tank, drop it into that small tank. It'll give you a little extra bacteria in there to just make triple sure that you have enough to actually instantly get that tank going. Truth is, just with that seasoned sponge, you should have enough beneficial bacteria to go ahead and support that fish while it actually recovers or gets through its quarantine period, or puts on a little bit of size so you can put him in the main tank, whatever the reason is, or has the fry, and then you leave the fry in there. If you're using it for fry, be sure that if you're using a small hang-on back filter, that you use a cover over the intake, or the fry will get sucked up into the actual into the filter, and that's not a good ending. All right, so those are my tips. What are your thoughts on this? Comment below. I want to hear them. You know I like to read them. And be sure to visit me on Instagram at ben.o.cichlid for some behind-the-scenes peeks and previews. And we have a great group on Facebook, going strong, over 7,000 helpful members that welcome anyone from advanced to beginner at Ben-O''Cichlid. And I hope to see you on Saturday at the Cichlids and Coffee live stream. All right, that's it for me. Thank you for tuning in. You are appreciated. Bye-bye.